You told me a story last week when we were together. I can't remember exactly the job you were doing with the German symphony. Were you the stage manager?
I've toured with several different foreign symphonies, and this particular year was the Hamburg Symphony. I've got to lead into this with another story, but I was
That's fine.
At the same time that I was the head carpenter at the Palace West, I was the head electrician at this, what is now called the Celebrity Theater in Phoenix. It was called the Phoenix Star Theater. And Wally Adams was a stage manager there. And Wally and I became very good friends. He just passed away about 3 years ago. But we've been friends all this time. And he, at this time, the incident you're talking about, worked for Columbia Artists Management and International Concerts Management with Saul Hurok and George Perper. And so Wally and I were not just friends, but we coordinated our work together quite well at the Star Theater. And so he got me out on the road with jobs that he did. And one of the jobs was the Hamburg Symphony. And so I was the I member, and I could deal with the yellow cards, sending out to the heads of the locals. And I would never go to a theater that didn't have a local. I refused to go into a situation where there was an amateur crew. And in fact, I've settled a couple of strikes in Milwaukee, for instance, at the Pabst Theater in Milwaukee. I refused to take our trucks in one morning after trying to negotiate this thing with them, with the management, for 2 or 3 weeks over the phone. And when we finally got to Milwaukee with a show I was with, it was the Acrobats of Canton, I refused to bring the trucks in. Did the same thing at Rutgers University in New Jersey. I told him I was going to drive the trucks in the river. I was out on the road with one of the symphonies. But anyway, the Hamburg just came out of Montreal heading for Newburgh, New York, and then on into Carnegie Hall in New York, and this is in 1970.
You got to Newburgh, and there was a union work stoppage with all the organized musicians.
Exactly, yeah.
And so what happened there?
Well, the musicians voted, the Germans voted, and they agreed that they would not play the concert to honor the American trade union agreement, which I thought it was great. But that gave us a day off in Newburgh, a night off, and that night we're in the hotel with the same crew that was the television crew that was doing the Army-Navy game. It's very close to West Point there. And so they were staying in the hotel and having dinner and sitting at the bar. So I was sitting at the bar between two gentlemen and talking with the musicians. The German musicians would come up and chat and buy a drink or just talk in German, most of the German. And so the two guys on the side of me were talking back and forth across me, and they said, "You're pretty good with that German, George." I said, "Well, I tried just a little bit." And he said, "Well," he said, "what have you been doing?" I said, "Well, I just got off the Dick Van Dyke show in Phoenix, the new Dick Van Dyke show in Phoenix." They said, "You know Dick Van Dyke?" And I said, "Yeah, I worked with him. He's literally my boss for 2.5 years."
Yeah.
And so, "Well, I know Dick Van Dyke. We used to drink at the Satellite Bar in New York." And he said, "My name is Chuck Howard." And he shook hands with me, and this is Rune Arledge. So I was sitting between Rune Arledge, who were the producers of ABC Wide World of Sports. They had just shot the Army-Navy game with their crew. And said, "Well, how would you like to work with us in Munich in 2 years?" This is 1970.
1970.
Yeah, about 70 in the fall. I said, "What's in Munich?" They said, "Well, the Olympic Games." And I said, "Well, sounds kind of interesting." So he said, "Well, why don't you drop into the office when you get into New York?" We did a concert at Carnegie Hall in about 3 days from that date. And I went up to his office, and he said, "Well, we'd like you definitely to be with us in Munich, and you're going to be a front runner when you get there. We don't know for sure what you're going to be doing yet." So during that next period of time, it was about 16 months, about 20 months between then and the Munich Olympics. About every 2 months, they'd send a plan to me in Phoenix, and I was a theater consultant at that time too. They haven't gotten into that part yet, but
right.
So I was kibitzing and making red line comments on the drawings that they'd send to me in Phoenix and send them back to New York, mostly in communications and sound and location of VTR rooms and where how things should be set up, especially in lighting. So that was how I got hired on the Munich Olympics.
It's so interesting to me that a work stoppage just serendipitously
Exactly.
provided this opportunity for you to you know take your skills across the pond, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it was also amazing that the German musicians honored the American musicians' work stoppage.
Well, I kind of encouraged that a little bit.
Uh-huh.